Want to talk about the defensive side of the ball for the Oregon Ducks today, because if we had to split everything up, defense, offense, even special teams, I think you have to say the defense was the strong point for Oregon today. They only allow 14 points. In some cases, they were put in a tough position defensively, but overall, what did you see? Would you call it a successful performance? Obviously, it's tough because of the opponent you're playing. Again, not always dominant, but overall pretty good.
I was really happy with the defense, specifically the defensive line. And the two guys that I'm going to shout out, because I know that Anthony came in and he talked about Jordan Birch, who was everywhere. The two guys to me that had a big game, Derek Harmon, you go out in the transfer portal, you have to get a new 3 tech because you lost Brandon Dorless. That dude was everywhere. He had 5 total tackles. He had 1.5 sacks. He had 2 TFLs. He forced a fumble. He was all over the field causing havoc for Idaho. And when it comes to stopping an offense, if you have an interior defensive lineman that can get after the quarterback but can also stop the run, that's going to entirely change your game plan and what you can do as an offense. That is huge. He came in billed as a game wrecker, and that's exactly what Derek Harmon was in the first game. The second guy that I have to shout out, Matui Uiagalelei. Oh my God. He is living up to the hype. The move that he pulled to get the second pass.
Yeah, I need to cut you off here because I want to tell the listeners exactly how this went down.
Wow.
This was obviously we're sitting here in the studio watching the fourth quarter of the game, and Will's got his feet kicked up on the desk, and Mateo Uiagalelei comes around the corner for the sack, and me, I'm like, oh, nice, a sack, and Will sits up in his seat and he's like, oh my God, he hit him with the Donald. He dropped the Donald on him. So tell me exactly what you saw there that was so impressive.
It's an unbelievable move because so few can do it because of how risky it is. So Aaron Donald really popularized it. And what he does is, as soon as the ball is snapped, he takes an inside step to get the offensive lineman to commit to the inside. He then jumps in the air, which you are told never to do. As a defensive lineman, he jumps in the air and takes his hands and double swats the offensive lineman's hands away. So that way, as soon as he lands, he's already past the offensive lineman, and it's a free run right to the quarterback. And to have someone at the age of 19 years old who's able to do that to the point where he makes the offensive lineman turn around and look stupid. The poor Idaho offensive lineman that was blocking him just turned with his hands up and was like, I don't know what to do there. I just got sunned.
Yeah.
It's a great move. And to have that kid in that position who you are kind of grooming him to be that opposite, right? He needs to be the opposite of Jordan Birch. Jordan Birch is going to be the D end on the strong side. You need that weak side defensive end. And right now, what I saw from Matui Uiagalelei was all that and more than what you could have asked for him. He had 2 sacks. I know he only had 3 total tackles, but when you're in the backfield, you cause a fumble, you have multiple QB hits to go along with your sacks, and you have multiple TFLs. That means you're playing on the offensive side of the football. And again, he's 19. He's only going to get better. The only critique that I have, he needs to find bigger shoulder pads. It looks like he's running around like a rugby player out there. Other than that, I felt like that kid had a perfect opener to the season.
And then additionally, one other guy that jumped out to both you and I, but will not jump out from the box score tonight,
Right.
Tatum Tuioti.
Yes.
We saw him featured a little bit in, I was going to say Ducks versus them, but that team out west.
Right.
He seems like a guy that, I don't know if other Duck fans are going to remember these guys, but recently like a Jordan Scott who helped plug the middle, or even a little further back a Jeremy Gibbs. That was like a guy who was like when I was in school, but they have not had, it doesn't feel like that kind of beef in the middle, making plays for others. And maybe you can explain that a little bit, because I just saw a guy that was almost dominant tonight, but it doesn't look like it from his box score.
Right. So the play that's always going to stand out to me for Tuioti is the Jordan Birch sack. And on the Big Ten Network, they rightfully loved up Jordan Birch. Jordan Birch made a great play. He pushes his right tackle into the backfield. He then shucks off of him, and he's there to make the play on the quarterback. But the reason that the quarterback was all the way on Jordan's side is because Tuioti just bull rushed the tackle he was going up against, got underneath his pads, lifted him up, put him on skates. Then after he threw him to the ground, I think he left a cleat mark on his shoulder pads as he ran him over to get to the quarterback. And the only reason he didn't get a sack is because the quarterback ran right into Jordan Birch. It's plays like that, though, that you have to have on this defense. This defense is built for guys to be flying around and to be unselfish. So there are going to be weeks where Tuioti, he has one tackle like this, but he creates a bunch of plays for others. It's going to come back around for him. And it might be next week where you look at the box score and you go, well, where was Derek Harmon? That dude didn't, he has one tackle. He didn't really do anything. And then you watch the game film and you're like, oh, that's because Uiagalelei and Tuioti and Jordan Birch, they stole all the tackles and the sacks that he caused.
Now let's move just level back on the defense to the linebacking unit. I felt like they were solid today, but and I know that's like a super generic term, but it felt like at times they could have been better than they were. But overall, they didn't get gashed too much. What was your evaluation about what the middle level of defense did?
I thought they did well. I mean, Betcher went out and had a performance. He leads your team in tackles. He had 5 as well, 2 solos. I think that the way that this defense is going to work is you are going to have a week in, week out new tackles leader. You're not going to look at this defense and go, oh, Noah Sewell had 12 tackles again, and then he's going to have 12 again and again. And so I think this week it just felt like the defensive line won more one-on-one battles, and so they're able to get into the backfield. So they're the ones making all the big plays.
Sure.
And you're not going to see Betcher, you're not going to see Bossa as much this week. Now, next week when you play Boise State, you're going to have to wrangle in a running back that has some wiggle to him now. And so I think you might see more tackles from your linebackers in those spots.
And then finally, the secondary, I was pretty impressed with them. I know that, that they, frankly, I saw more names popping up of guys that I wasn't expecting. Like Jamar Muhammad certainly, but I didn't think Brandon Johnson was a guy that got talked up a lot during camp at all. He's another one of those transfers. He comes over from Duke, and he had a great game.
Fantastic.
First of all, the interception that he made that we heard on the play-by-play cut, that was Idaho driving to make it a 7-7 ball game, and he turned around, ball in air, and was able to just get a hand on it enough to tip it up to himself and give himself time to get to secure the ball and get a foot in bounds. I think he got both feet in bounds, but I heard virtually nothing about this cat, and he makes maybe the play of the game. And then again, he has another one on the other side of the field, deep ball coverage, a little bit of hand fighting. You could have said that maybe he got away with a little bit, but again, makes the play. And a guy that I didn't necessarily expect contributions from right away, doing that right away.
Yeah, the guy that I was looking for to make the big plays was Jabbar Muhammad. So to me, when you have Nico Reed and then you have Jordan going out there, Johnson.
Brandon Johnson.
Thank you. When those are the guys that are going out and making the interceptions, they're the ones getting the turnovers. That's got to make you feel good because you know you still have that lockdown corner. I don't have to worry about Jabbar Muhammad. I just thought going into the year, you might need a little bit more production out of him because the other guys hadn't gelled yet together and they hadn't had the opportunity to play in these types of games that he obviously has. So when you have these two guys go out and they're the ones making the turnovers, they're making big plays, they're not getting beat deep, right? Aside from a broken play, Idaho didn't do much offensively. This isn't, when you come out of this game, a lot of people are going to say, well, Oregon sucked. No, they didn't.
Well, and when you look at Oregon,
parts of Oregon
only
sucked.
winning by 10, it's not because the defense played poorly.
No. Exactly. So you need to look at this as two separate spots. And defensively, I thought you did everything that I could have asked of you. The only thing that you didn't do was have a pick six or a fumble recovery for a touchdown. That's the only knock against you. And you have one broken play where they ran a trick play and they got you. Aside from that, I was really impressed with what this defense brought.
And can I quickly add to the secondary? Nice to see. I believe it was like episode 3 or 4 of that team out west where Dan Lanning was talking about how young cornerbacks, young defensive backs can be implemented into a very successful defensive scheme if they're coached. And it was nice to see, I think, like a sophomore, Devin Jackson, only had a tackle last year, actually get in significant playing time. Tyler Turner as well. He's a freshman that just came in this year, but a very high recruit. So I know, like, yeah, the offense wasn't so great, but at least seeing like the defense maybe ready, to take that next step and to be that elite Big Ten SEC-like defense. I feel like I did see the footprints for that today.
Yeah, I felt like we certainly saw the depth of the secondary today. I think we saw the depth of the linebacking core and the D-line as well. I think that you have enough depth there that you can sustain just the rigors of the season and avoid some of the burnout that can happen to a thin defense. I think that they have the dudes they need, and frankly, today I thought that looked pretty good.